What's up, guys, and welcome back to my channel where I talk and do everything pinball. So if that sounds interesting to you, then hit that subscribe button down below. The following content is definitely targeted towards the new people to this hobby, but by all means, you veterans out there might learn something too. Now, there's a couple of different ways you could go about buying a pinball machine. One is the easy way when it comes to buying a brand new in box machine. That's simple as calling your distributor, and if you do not have a distributor, all I can really recommend is a distributor that I have used, and that's Flipping Out Pinball with Zach Mini. He's definitely not sponsoring this or anything. It's just one of those things that I definitely stand by those that have done well for me or to me or whatever. So when it comes to products and services, if you do well by me, then by all means I will promote you without cash in hand or anything. That's just how it is for me. So with that being said, if you want a brand new pinball machine, then by all means call the distributor and say, I want this game, and then they will work out a deal and then ship it to you. It's pretty simple. But when it comes to buying a used or older game, there's more steps involved. I think as of right now, I've got like 6 steps, and we're gonna start with step 1, and that is understanding your budget. I think one of the most common questions I receive from individuals that don't know anything about pinball, whether it be my coworkers or other friends or just people that find out that I'm into pinball, is that they want to know how much a pinball machine costs. And that is going to be, like I said, the most common question that anybody in this hobby will hear is, how much does a pinball machine cost? And it's like, a lot of the times we have to explain to them that it's not that simple, because the price can range from like low hundreds or even less than that, all the way up into the 10,000 plus range. So there's a very big price, margin to really dive into. So what you will commonly find amongst whether it be Pinside or people talk about in general is the comparison to a car purchase and a pinball purchase. This is often basically called the car argument. And I think it's valid to compare these two types of things in a lot of different categories. And I think it's mainly because they kind of go hand in hand together when it comes to price and what you're getting, and a lot of different factors that come into play. So let's talk about, for instance, the type of car versus the type of pinball machine. Age of the car, age of the pinball machine, the condition of the car, condition of the pinball machine. These all kind of go parallel with each other, so that's why a lot of people use that. So I can't just say, how much does a car cost? Because, okay, what kind of car? Are you talking about like an 89 Pontiac, or are you talking about a Lamborghini? There's a very big, giant, thing to compare there. So a lot of the times that is what we have to deal with, is figuring out what is it that we can afford. What is a price point where you feel like, I don't want to go any higher than this? And that's where you need to first figure out. And I can tell you right now, with the incline of interest in pinball, the price in pinball is going up. So whenever I first got into it, what the prices were at compared to what they are now. Like, for instance, Getaway, you could probably get that years ago, not too far ago, guys. I know you can get them for a lot cheaper than that, but I think the average price for a Getaway years ago was around like $2,000, give or take a few hundred, depending on the condition, obviously. Now it's hard to find one less than $3,000 unless it's got some wear, which is the same thing with the car. So you could have a brand new car that normally goes for, like, let's say $20,000, but if the car has been, got scuffed and hail damage all over it, that's going to really reflect the price. So again, keep that in mind. The same thing goes with used pinball machines, is when it comes to condition. That is one of the main factors in that. So understanding your budget, going back to it, is you need to figure out what you can afford. And this is going to require a little bit of research on your end, but I think a really good price point to start out, if you've never purchased a machine before, is the sweet spot to get a decent game is around $2,500. I think that gets you right there in the sweet spot to where you could get a lot of even DMD games, and depending on where you are at, and of course the person that's selling it. But I think $2,500 these days can get you a good amount of pretty decent games. And everything below that, you never know. Like I said, it all depends on condition and all that stuff. There's so many variables, but just keep in mind that $2,500 is probably a really good starting point to go from getting a really good machine down to a good starter pin. So it can go down really cheap. Which brings me to my next step. The next step is, where do you look to find these pinball machines? Now, this is going to be definitely location based. So it used to be Craigslist. Craigslist was probably like the #1 place that we used to find the pinball machines and sales, but due to the rise in social media, Facebook Market is probably going to be your next best bet. Then you have Pinside, they have a market on there. Then you have all your other kind of applications, Let Go and anything like that. All these other kind of online sales stuff typically will have pinball machines, but your top two are probably going to be Facebook Market and Pinside. Everything else is going to be, I don't know, you never know what you're going to get. I still check all of them, obviously, whenever I'm on the prowl for a good deal, so don't count anything out. So I guess my advice to you on that is to cast a very large net over multiple platforms to find a good deal. On to step 3, and that is what to look out for. Now, a lot of times there are people out there that understand that there are those of us that are searching for a good deal when it comes to pinball machines. This is most commonly found on Craigslist, where you can be totally anonymous when posting your ad, and a lot of the times they will try to lure in those of us that are trying to prey off those that don't realize what they've got, kind of thing. So the chances are, if you're scrolling through, and again, a lot of this is going to become with experience on what pinball machines usually sell for, the type of game they are and stuff. So let's just say, for instance, I'm scrolling through Craigslist and I see that someone's got a Tales of the Arabian Nights for $2,500. You're not going to find that machine for that cheap unless someone really has no idea what they've got, or once again, the machine is completely ragged out and tore up. But that's usually a big red flag when you have an A-list game like that and someone's trying to sell it for a dramatically low price. They are merely trying to lure you in to get your email address so they can use that to spam you with all kinds of stuff. Sometimes it has to do with like mailing in checks to really scam you hardcore that way. So just, that's something to really keep an eye out for. And that kind of segues into my next step. Step 4, do your research. Now, this research is involved in finding, obviously, what the typical going price for a machine is. And I have websites I will show you right here that you can go to. I want to say it's like pinballprices.com, where it's a giant, index of like going prices for pinball machines in the last year and what they've sold for, like the average range, the low price, and the highest price, to kind of give you a ballpark idea of what a particular game sells for. So let's say you're scrolling through Facebook Market and someone's got a World Cup Soccer, which I own, and a World Cup Soccer, and you see it up for sale for, let's say $3,200. Now, this is whenever you have to start doing your research. Like, okay, is this a title that you want? Do you know this game? Now, if you do not know this game, that's when you start looking up some YouTube videos of the game to get an idea if this is a game that you think that you would enjoy. Now, this is also difficult for those of you out there that haven't played a lot of these games and don't really know if you're going to like it or not. So you're already taking a chance as it is on buying your first game and not knowing if you're going to like it. So that's why the research comes into play, by watching YouTube videos and just getting an idea if the sounds in the game don't seem too repetitive and they're going to be annoying. Stuff like that. So do your research when it comes to watching videos on the actual gameplay of it, if it's something that's going to be interesting to you and you want to hold on to. You also want to see what available parts are readily available with them. So you can go to like Marco or Pinball Live, Pinball Resource, to figure out if parts for that game are available. And that's something that needs to be disclosed in the ad when you're purchasing it, is if they say, let's say for instance the soccer ball is missing on this World Cup Soccer. Are you able to get that soccer ball on one of these websites as a replacement for it? So that's something to keep in mind, is that a lot of the times when people are selling a game, they will if they are a good seller, disclose the things that are wrong with the machine that will need to be replaced or things that are missing. So once again, do your research when it comes to parts availability and price. And then obviously do the research on the traveling, the distance that you're going to have to travel to pick up this machine. So it's like you may have a good deal on a machine, but if the machine's located, like I'm in Texas, and then the machine's located in Maine, I have to tack on hundreds of dollars in gas money and my time to drive all the way up there. It's one of those things where you have to weigh your options. Is the time and money on gas worth going all that way to save a couple of $100 maybe in the end? That is obviously going to be up to you in the end on that. So when doing your search, whether it be on Craigslist or Facebook or Pinside, whatever, try to, make sure your range on distance for traveling is decent. I usually do about a 300-mile diameter from my current location, because I think any further than that, it better be a really good deal. And this is definitely where your location really comes into play. You may be in a rural area where not a lot of people have those kind of things around, or you could be where I'm at, where a lot of people in the Dallas area had these machines, and I'm actually in the halfway point between Oklahoma City and Dallas. So I get usually a good fair point of going north or south for that. So that's just something to keep in mind also, is your location greatly depends on the price that you're going to be paying for these games. So after you've done all of your research for your parts and pricing and everything, that comes to step 5, and that is making an offer. Now I say making an offer instead of paying them what they want, because typically, not all the time, it really depends on the seller and what the ad states. If the ad states firm, then chances are more than likely they are firm and there's no going down on price. But a lot of the times when people do post up pinball machines, there is a little bit of a give on the price typically, because like I said, the demand is going up on these machines. So a lot of people out there are selling their machines, obviously getting a profit somewhere in there, and it all depends on the demand for that title. So I'm not gonna buy a machine and try to flip it for profit if I know the demand is not high for it. But if I know the demand is high for it, for instance, like Tales of the Arabian Nights, I could sell that right now for a profit easily, because when I purchased it, I got a good price for it. And I know people out there want that game. Same goes for the Getaway. Now, I could go on to different pinball machines. Typically, you got to be careful when it comes to Gottliebs. There's not a lot of demand for those titles because of just the way they are, and the themes don't really speak to everyone. I'm not dissing those of you out there that love Gottliebs. By all means, there's games out there that I enjoy by them as well, but that's usually the company that tends to be not as sought after as your Bally Williams titles. So when you're making your offer on the pinball machine, let's go back to it once again with a World Cup Soccer for $3,200. Now, once again, this is a game that's price has gone up because people are starting to realize that this game is actually pretty damn fun. So the price is going up on it, demand's going up. And again, it depends on the condition of the title. So the pictures really come into effect on here. You're not going to see people post pinball machines up for sale without pictures. And if you do, then I guarantee you, people that are inquiring about a machine will want to see pictures before making the drive. You don't see someone posting up oh, I have an Addams Family looking for, I don't know, $4,000 or whatever, $5,000. Let's just say something that's kind of a reasonable price, and them not have any pictures. People are going to want to see what the playfield looks like. They're going to be asking questions. No one's just going to say, I'm on my way. And if you do, then you're a different breed for sure. But the majority of us will definitely want to see pictures of what the playfield looks like. Mainly, the cabinet is definitely a factor, but not as much as the playfield. That is something that is very hard to replace and expensive at that. So a lot of us out there would obviously, a really good condition playfield. That if that doesn't matter to you, then you can get all kinds of good machines for good prices, because there's plenty of machines out there that have got plenty of wear on them, and a lot of people pass on them due to that. So like I stated earlier, you need to really account for your traveling time and gas money going into that when it comes to how much money is coming out of your pocket to correlate with what your budget is. So let's say if your budget was $2,500 and you know that's your cutoff point, then if the game is selling for $2,500, then your best bet is to see if you can knock off some of that money to counter for the gas money that you're putting into it. So if someone's asking, let's say $2,500 for a machine, I mean, typically there's a little bit of room in there. So if you want to ask for like $2,400, you know, like, hey, would you do $2,400 or whatever? And sometimes there's also all kinds of ways that you can make a deal when it comes to them delivering it to you or meeting halfway, which is not very common for pinball machines, because a lot of the times when people buy a machine, they want to make sure it works. And when you meet halfway somewhere, then there's not really a place to really set up a machine and make sure it works. That's just not going to happen. So keep that in mind also, is that there's no let's meet in a public place to swap machines unless you really don't care if the machine works or not. So I'm sure people have done it. I never will. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at the price of a machine, is that a lot of the times there is a little give on what the price actually states. It never hurts to ask, but don't go in there lowballing. Typically my response, this is the most common thing you're going to get. I hate selling on Facebook because people don't read the ads. I give all the information that anybody could ask for when it comes to selling a pinball machine, but it's like they don't bother reading it. They rather just ask the questions and you give them the answers instead of reading the ad. So they'll ask questions like, you know, does it work? Like, obviously, so little stuff like that. But I think a question that I get asked, and the question typically is, what's the lowest you'll take? That is the quickest way to get under the skin of someone selling a pinball machine, is what's the lowest you'll take. I'm like, are you serious? I mean, so my response to that is, when someone asks you what's the lowest you will take, your response needs to be, what's the most you will pay? That's the easiest way to answer that question, guys. And because it's like, that's laziness right there. You're like just wanting to get through with the foreplay of arguing and going back and forth on possible prices and just skip right to it. So like, skip foreplay, just get right to it, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Like, no, if you don't have the time to work out a bargaining, then I definitely don't want to do business with you. So that's the way I look at it. To each their own, but just be prepared for, you know, most of the people that I've had to discuss with pricing back and forth has been very good, but there have been a couple that have been not so good. So usually it's pretty good, but I think one of the main factors when it comes to buying a machine from someone is going to be the next step and the final step, which that is step 6, scheduling the pickup for your machine. So when it comes to someone buying a machine, typically the first person that has the amount of cash to give to that person that's selling it is going to get it. I mean, that's just the way it is. It sucks. So it's not good for you to contact somebody. I mean, you can do it if you want to, but just let it be known, it's usually not the way they tend to do things. You call somebody, you talk, you're like, okay, good, I've got the money, or I'm not getting paid till Friday. Can you hold the machine for me until Friday? And let's just say it's Monday. So that now this person has got to put faith in you for the next 4 or 5 days that you're actually going to cop up the money and come pick up the machine. That's not a good way to go about doing things. If you want a machine, then you need to dedicate the time and have the money in hand ASAP. So a lot of the times if I'm contacting somebody, I'm going to try to get it either that night or the next day. It's been very rare that I've had to be able to ask the individual if I could come by this coming weekend or something like that. I think the only time I've done that is when I'm actually trading one of my machines. So just keep that in mind, that a lot of people, when they're selling their games, they want to sell it cash in hand and be done with it ASAP, not be caught in a, oh, I hope the buyer comes and gives me his money kind of thing. They don't want that. So if you want a machine, have the money in hand to the seller as soon as possible and come and get it as soon as possible. That is the best way to go about doing it, and the seller will definitely appreciate it. And there it is, guys. That is my 6 steps on buying a pinball machine. I hope this video has been very useful for those of you out there that have yet to purchase your first machine. Depending on the feedback on this video deters whether or not I will release another video entitled How to Sell a Pinball Machine. If you like what you've seen here, give me the thumbs up, and if you haven't already, by all means, hit the subscribe button down below. That way you can be notified of whenever I upload something for your viewing pleasure. Until next time, guys. Peace out. Okay, so let's try to do this in as close to real time as I possibly can. I am currently on the Facebook Marketplace. I've typed in the search results for pinball. Now I'm just going to scroll through and see if anything catches my eye. We got a Jurassic Park Lost World for $3,500. That's probably a fair price. Honestly, I don't know for sure about that one, but if everything works, that doesn't seem too far-fetched. It's got the topper on there as well. Let's see here. There is... Let me move it over so you can actually see it. Oh. But there is a Shack Attack Pinball for $1,800. Now, that's a really good price for like a DMD game, but once again, I got to remind you, this is a Gottlieb. This is not a heavily sought-after game, but for those of you out there that want a... this would be your first game. It's not a bad first game for less than $2,000. DMD, Gottlieb, especially System 3s, they hold up very well when, especially on locations and everything in my experience. But it's just not a game that a lot of people go after. But just the things to look for. Let's see, they've got some powder coating on the rails. It doesn't look like they've got any kind of LEDs on there, so that's probably why they've got it priced the way they do. Well, let's see what else we got. Scrolling through, a bunch of other stuff that is not what I'm looking for. Maverick for $2,100. Okay, so this is especially since he had it posted at $3K, and now it's down to $2,100. So he's getting desperate here, guys. This is not LED'd as well. Cabinet looks to be pretty good shape. Got a bunch of extra stuff on there as well. Yeah, this would be, if everything works, let me see what the post says. Post says, for sale in an original Maverick pinball machine is very good condition. Maverick is a standard body, large DMD pin with a card game, Western theme, based on blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this is a very poor description about the game. A lot of this is probably copied and pasted from like the Internet Pinball database on what the game's about. But as far as like the actual condition and if anything's working, not working, I mean, stuff like that, that's not in here. But yeah, many talk about having extra parts. So this guy needs to sell this game, and $2,100 for a Maverick seems well worth it. So just to confirm this, let's do pinballprices.com, and let's go to the average price. All right, and then we'll just whittle this down to Maverick. Maverick the movie. So the average price is $23.36. That is a total of 3 sales. So that gives you an idea right there. The year 2020, $23.36. In 2019, it was $2,200. 2018, it was $1,525. So that gives you the average price. So as of right now, this year, the average price is $23.36. Now, once again, this is subjective, but it does give you the ballpark on what you're looking for. So you already know that $2,300 is average, and he's got it priced at $2,100. So he's below average. So that gives you a good point right there. So now I know that this game is priced accordingly, and now I need to know if there's parts readily available. So I'll go to Margot, and I know this is a Sega game, so I'll go to Shop by Game, and they've got Maverick right here, and then I'll do usually a support page by 60, And you got a lot of typical parts on a lot of machines. You even got to replace. Oh, the DMD is out of stock, so that's something to notice right there. I think, yeah, they do have a color DMD for this game now. So this DMD display is not available on this website, but they do have a color DMD available. So that's something just to keep notice of. They've got some of the power display boards and a lot of flipper stuff, decal targets. A lot of things on here. So these are things that you need to keep in mind on what's available for the title. And heck, wow, they've even got a playfield for $600. So $600 for a brand new playfield? Wow. Playfields typically run about $1,000, guys. So to get this game, if you wanted to make it look like really great, then by all means, pop a new playfield in there. It's pretty cool. Translight's out of stock, but you can get all new plastic sets right here. Yeah, so I'm liking what I'm seeing when it comes to parts availability. So if I was so inclined, I would definitely send this guy a message, and I probably wouldn't even worry too much about trying to ask even lower on a price, especially when he's lowered it as much as he has. But it wouldn't hurt. I mean, I might even be able to talk him down to $1,900 if I wanted the game, but I don't. But I might put it on location now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know. But yeah, that's how it goes, guys. And all I would have to do is contact him and set up a scheduled pickup. And that's pretty much all there is to it, guys.